After that epic win, let's blow out your eardrums. That's right. Bear down, Bears fans. It's time for another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast, Bears Banter, powered by Second City Gridiron. Bill Zimmerman with you, and holy God, the Chicago Bears have advanced to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs in the most improbable, epic fashion ever. We are going to talk about all of it. We are going to talk about how they got to where they're going. We're going to get into everything that you want. And we're going to get into it also with Laurence Holmes of The Score. Laurence is going to be by here in a little bit. But I've got a lot on my mind that we need to talk about. And let's just first talk about this win, because I'm older than I think most of my audience listening to this podcast. I am old enough to remember the Super Bowl in 86, January of 86. I was there in New Orleans as an 8-year-old celebrating that win. But here's the thing. So when I talk about the greatest wins in my lifetime, it's really hard to talk about the 1980s. And I remember that season with the Super Bowl. And I remember the Junkyard Dogs poster that I had up on my wall, and the Blues Brothers poster that I had up, the Black and Bruce Brothers, I should say, that I had up on my wall. I was totally into that team as a kid. And I remember the playoff run, and being at these games and being at the Washington game with Willie Galt's kickoff return for a touchdown, and everyone standing up, my dad launching me up in the air so I could see. Like, I have memories from 1985. But here's the thing. When they're great and they're winning, and you have no perspective as a kid. So, like, the Bears were great, and they played the Super Bowl shuffle, and they were just supposed to win, and they did. And you say, well, yeah, they're great. And you think they're going to win next year and the year after because you're a kid and you don't understand the struggle and where they came from. I had no context of what the Chicago Bears were in the 1970s and what they had built up once they hired Ditka and 83 and 84 and building to where they were in 85. There's no context there. They were just great, and I enjoyed it. And I think to truly enjoy a game, you need that full context. You need to at least probably be 15, 16, 17 to have some of the idea, that context. Or as a full adult, your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever it might be. So this win against the Packers in the playoffs and how they did it, I'm sitting here going, was this the greatest win for me in my lifetime? Well, of course, it's not a bigger win than the Super Bowl, but I'm talking about for me in my experiences as a Bears fan. And I was at this game. Thank you, season ticket holder. The Saints game to advance to the Super Bowl with the Lovey era. Was that the game? Like, that's the only one for me that can even compete, because all the other playoff wins that they've had, whether I was there or not, like there wasn't an overriding expectation. They won in a typical fashion, beating Seattle or whatever. Like there's not a lot there. And it's not going to be a regular season game. You can't compete with the playoffs with a regular season game. So when I'm trying to figure out, was this the greatest win of my lifetime that I've experienced as a Chicago Bears fan? It's either first or second. Because, again, it's the Saints. And, yeah, they beat Drew Brees, and the Saints were a great team. But this is the Green Bay Packers. This is a team that has made my football life miserable since I was like 14 years old. I'm getting close to 50, man. It's been that long. And to do it against the Packers and to have the comeback the way they did, it, like, again, recency bias, it might beat the Saints. And I understand they went to the Super Bowl. They won the NFC Championship game and went to the Super Bowl, and they beat the snot out of the Saints. They won by like 3 touchdowns in that game. But this again, emotional roller coaster, and we're going to get into it because I try, and I tell you all season, what do I say? I got to stay off social media. I'm going to stay off social media. And then the Bears play like they do to start that game. And I couldn't help myself. And I'm basically cutting every player on the defense, and I'm overreacting like a fan. And I'm not being objective about anything. And we'll talk about this defense weeks from now as we get into the offseason, because yes, it does need a major overhaul, but that's neither here nor there right now. Right now, we are in the thick of a playoff run. That's right. It is now a run because the Chicago Bears are playing their second game of the playoffs. And you know what they're doing? They're playing it at home because they got the 2 seed. And I understand that the Rams are the 5 seed. So in theory, if they would have slipped, they would have got, but again, they played the Packers. They didn't play the 49ers who go and upset the Eagles. Again, we talk about why it matters about your mindset going into the playoffs and to not take the foot off the gas. The Bears didn't take the foot off the gas. And if they did, had they taken their foot off the gas in week 18, are we sure they would have been able to reach down and find what they found in the second half of that football game? I don't know, because that's how important it is for Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen and this coaching staff to make sure that this team is rearing and ready to go at all times. So let's talk about this a little bit. Let's talk about this comeback, and let's start with Ben Johnson. And I admit to you guys, I talk to you guys all the time that, yeah, you know, I've played football. I played offensive line. Like when I go and watch the all 22, when I watch a game back, I pay attention to the offensive line a lot. And yes, do I try and look at the receivers and the route concepts and where Caleb Williams should have gone with the ball potentially here or there? Yes, I do it. And sometimes I think I'm dead on accurate in my analysis. And sometimes I'm not sure because I don't have the expertise of an offensive-minded coach who can sit down, you know, a quarterback coach who can just break down the tape and know, all right, that was this concept. He should have gone here. He went here. This was a great read. This was the wrong read. I'm not that good at breaking it down, which is why I say, you should go to QB school. You should check out some of these other creators who really understand these concepts. But what I have been seeing and talking to people around the league, former players, former coaches, former scouts, media members who have never played before, but they're plugged in as well. Ben Johnson does everything with purpose. And that is not something we are used to as Chicago Bears fans. We have not had an elite play caller ever. Like Mike Martz was probably the closest thing, because Mike Martz was great with what he did with the Greatest Show on Turf as that team's play caller. We know it didn't work in Chicago. So when we are talking about, I mean, who's the best offensive coordinator? Like, I can't even compare, like, who's second on the list to Ben Johnson? I know he's the head coach, but you know what I mean? Who's second? It might even be Nagy, and he wasn't that good. He wasn't a play caller. Matt Nagy was a bad play caller. Who has been a great play caller for the Chicago Bears? I'm not even going to hazard to guess. Like, you may have to go back to the 1940s with the T formation and the innovative offenses they had then. We have not seen this in Chicago. Ben Johnson does everything with purpose because he is playing chess. He is not just calling plays. He is not sitting there saying, oh, well, they're leaving the B gap open, so let's run a dive to the B gap. Like, I think that's what a lot of, and all right, that worked at 2nd and 4. Let's try and run the football again. We only got 2 yards, 3rd and 2. Let's do just like a quick out or a slant, try and get the first down. Like, I don't like, there's not a lot of cohesion to a Bears play caller in the past. We talked about all the time with Luke Getsy. He's just calling plays out of thin air, right? Ben Johnson does everything with purpose. So when we talk about this Bears team and how they keep coming up with plays in the fourth quarter and they believe, and yes, belief and culture and all that matters. But it's not the only reason the Chicago Bears are winning these football games. The Chicago Bears have an elite coaching staff, and not just by name. right? Like we talked about John Fox's coaching staff. It was like 225 some episodes, 230 episodes of Bears Banter, probably in like episode 7. We talked about John Fox's coaching staff and Vic Fangio and Adam Gase and even some of the other assistants like Stan Drayton and some of these other guys that he put in. I'm like, this is an elite coaching staff. This is a Jay Rodgers. This is a great coaching staff. And I'm not saying it was just a great coaching staff in name, because Vic Fangio built up that defense even after John Fox left to what they were in 2018. And Jay Rodgers was the Bears defensive line coach then. He developed Eddie Goldman and Akeem Hicks and made that defense. Even other guys like Roy Robertson Harris. Jay Rodgers was great defensive line coach. But what we haven't seen is the coaches at the top playing chess like this. Fangio could game plan a defense and shut down an offense. But I'm talking about the chess that Ben Johnson is playing with opponents, because what he's doing is like I said, he's doing everything with purpose, and he is taking all the information that he is learning throughout a football game from his opponent. How did they react to this play? How did they react to this play? Why did this play gain 25 yards and this play is lost 1? He's taken all this information and he is processing it as the game is going on. So when he gets to the fourth quarter, he knows what he's not guessing what the defense is going to do. He knows what the defense is going to do when they line up and run a play. And he knows exactly where Caleb Williams needs to throw, exactly where DeAndre Swift needs to run. And it is not a coincidence that these plays are going for big yards in the fourth quarter. Yes, Caleb Williams is clutch. Yes, Caleb Williams is making incredible plays. We're going to talk about that throw to Rome Odunze here in a little bit. But Ben Johnson is a damn Monet. He's a Van Gogh. He's a Michelangelo. Name any great artist. That is who he is. They're all rolled into one. Him as a play caller. He is that good. And you can see, guys, I would not have picked up on this on tape. And that's why I try and watch and observe and learn. But you can see, you can find it on social media. People do a great job breaking down the offense. And you can see what Ben Johnson did with one particular formation. His bunch formation, where he's putting 3 receivers together. And he's putting them, and he's running like a screen out of it first. And he's showing block, and it goes to Luther Burden. And he's showing short yardage. And what's happening over the course of the game? The defense is cheating up. And then he bunches again towards the end of the game. The defense cheats up, and DJ Moore is not the lead blocker on the screen of Luther Burden this time. He's not running a quick in and getting the ball and sitting down for a 4-yard gain. No, he's releasing out behind the defense, wide open. Caleb hits him. Touchdown, Bears win. This is what Ben Johnson is doing. He is playing chess. He is 5, 6, 7, 8 steps ahead of his opposing coaches, and he is depancing them in the fourth quarter. So yes, this team believes, and yes, it has the culture. But what I am not hearing enough, and maybe it's because people aren't even processing it and seeing it, like national media, even some in the Chicago media, I am not hearing enough what Ben Johnson is doing on the football field, play, calling, coaching, and what he is doing to put the Bears, to put all these players in a position to succeed. And I think Dennis Allen is doing the same thing defensively. And the way that defense came out, and I don't understand why Kyler Gordon wasn't out there at the beginning of the game. I have no idea. I don't care at this point. I thought this was going to be something we were going to be talking about all week because the Bears lost and they got killed early on. It was because they didn't have the right personnel out there. I'm watching this game. My brain is already spinning on the next podcast because I was pissed. Like, you're going to go out like this to the Green Bay damn Packers. You're going to go out like this, 21-3, getting your ass kicked by Jordan Love. These fans going to just torture all of us on social media for 8 months until we can get to September. Like, you got to be kidding me that this is good. This is how this season is going to end, really? But no. And how many, I haven't lost faith a lot, but both times happen to be against the Green Bay Packers. And maybe that's my own Packers trauma coming out and say, well, they're not going to do it because it's the Packers, but they do it. And Caleb Williams already has 3 wins against the Green Bay Packers, which since Brett Favre was traded to the Green Bay Packers in 1991 and started playing in 1992, since that has happened and the Packers have dominated this rivalry ever since, Caleb Williams is already tied over this stretch for the most wins against the Packers with 3. He's got Kyle Orton. He's got Rex Grossman. 3. And we want to talk about the leading up to this, Jay Cutler, Justin Fields, and Mitch Trubisky, the 3, guys that we hoped were going to be the answer for the Bears at quarterback. Those 3 guys combined for 3 victories. 1 for Mitch, 2 for Jay. And yeah, we remember the Thanksgiving game. Great, Jay. Thanks for the memories. None for Justin Fields. They combined for 3. Caleb's already got 3 because Caleb thrives under pressure. And when, I almost said Eddie Goldman. That's where my brain is. When Gervon Dexter blew that fumble recovery and just, no one was around, Gervon. Just fall on it, man. That's all you had to do. But he dives on it, kicks the ball up, knocks it out of bounds. Packers have retained possession. When that happened, I thought for sure the game was over. I was like, they're just not getting the bounces. That's it. It's over. They're not going to be able to come back. I was furious. Now it's probably surprising because I yell and scream on this podcast so much. I'm usually pretty level-headed during a football game. I watch it. I'm just, whether I'm enjoying it or whether I'm trying to break it down, I'm pretty level-headed. I don't get that emotional during a football game. That might be surprising to a lot of you, but I'm pretty level-headed. I screamed at the television. The profanities were flying. And my dogs ran away. I got 3 dogs. They all ran away. They're like, oh, he's unstable. We don't need to be near him. That's where I was. I was so upset at that point. And to see, basically after that, it to turn on a dime like it did, and for the Chicago Bears to win this game the way they did was incredible. And did they need help? Did they need a little, intervention perhaps with the missed kicks? Maybe, but it doesn't matter. I'm not sitting here looking for if the Packers did this, if the Packers did that, the Bears may have lost the game. And yeah, it's possible, but it doesn't matter because it played out as it played out. And the Bears came back and won. And let's talk about Caleb Williams' throw to Rome Odunze because, and I texted, Chris Mad Dog Russo, you see him on First Take. I worked with Chris for a lot of years. And I texted this to Chris because I wanted to know what he thought of that Caleb Williams throw, because Chris is really hard on the modern day athlete. And to the point where a lot of people will get on him, where, he on First Take, when he's arguing with JJ Redick, he brought up Bob Cousy, and JJ Redick's like, Bob Cousy played with plumbers. And it just like, Chris loves the history. And he knows so much. And it's just, he has an insane brain with the memory of remembering plays and remembering context and everything that happened. Like, he doesn't know about Joe Montana's throw to Dwight Clark. He knows everything about that game, the 81 NFC Championship. And he understands the context of what it was for that throw. So I asked Chris, like, where does that throw rank? Because we can talk about great throws in NFL history, and we've seen some phenomenal throws, especially if you throw in the regular season. And we've seen phenomenal throws from Caleb Williams, where he's had arguably the throw of the year multiple times this season. Not like, oh, was it Caleb or was it Patrick Mahomes? Was it Caleb or was it Josh Allen? No, was it Caleb? Was it Caleb or was it Caleb? Like, that's where we are this year with the kind of throws that Caleb Williams has been making all season long. But now we get to this situation. It is the 4th quarter of a playoff game. It is 4th down. The Bears, and not 4th and 1, 4th and 8, 4th and 9, whatever it was. And the Bears are trailing significantly. If this ball is not completed, the Bears' season is over. Like, that's it. They are going to run out of time. They simply could not. If they did not finish this drive, they were not going to win the game. Mathematically, it wasn't going to work. And Caleb Williams rolling out to his left, throwing it like he had to as he's getting tripped to loft, to see. And if you go and see where Rome Odunze was when he released the football and putting it where only Rome Odunze could get it in a seat, 3 Packers around him? How good was that throw? Not just how good was that throw in Bears history. That's the greatest throw in Chicago Bears history. Like, tell me another throw that can even compete with that. With that much pressure, with that level of importance. There isn't a second throw. Maybe Sid Luckman had one in 1946. But I guarantee you he didn't have it with that kind of athleticism. We don't even, I love old-time football. We don't need to compare Sid Luckman's athleticism to Caleb Williams. We know who's got the athleticism edge there. Name a better throw. There's not a better throw. Like, you talk about Jim McMahon's throws to Willie Galton, the Vikings comeback in 1985. Like, we can talk about some great throws. They're not that throw. They're not with the playoffs. Bears have had so little playoff success over the last 60 years other than the 80s. In the 80s, they ran the hell out of the ball and beat teams with defense. Wasn't imaginary, magical throws through three defenders threading needles off balance. This is against the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs to ignite a comeback on 4th down in the 4th quarter. It's the greatest throw in Chicago Bears history. Done, end of story. How good is that throw in NFL history? It's on the short list. It might be arguably the greatest throw in NFL history. Oh, Bill, that's hyperbole. You're crazy. It probably isn't. Ben Roethlisberger throwing it to Santonio Holmes in the corner of the end zone to win the Super Bowl. And again, was it that level of athleticism? That insane body angle and throw? No, of course not. But we can talk, if you want to take, Joe Montana to Dwight Clark, even though, Caleb already did that against the Browns. Just let me do that, but I'll throw it 10 yards further. We've seen great throws in NFL history. Caleb Williams is on the short list. Arguably the greatest throw in NFL history. If not top 5, at least top 10. That's what we saw on Saturday night. So I asked Chris Russo. I said, where does it rank? He says, very highly, one of the best I've ever seen. This is a guy who's been watching football since the 1960s. His favorite team is the Lombardi Packers. He doesn't like the Packers anymore, but the Lombardi Packers. He grew up as a kid loving the Lombardi Packers. That's how long he's been watching this sport. And like I said, he's got an insane memory for this kind of stuff. He didn't bring up Bradshaw to Swan in the Super Bowl. He just said one of the best he's ever seen. He didn't rank it. It's going to take too long to do that, too much thought to do that. One of the best he's ever seen. That's what we're looking at with Caleb Williams. And, some moron's going to talk about completion percentage. Some idiot's going to say he was too inconsistent in the first half. That's all going to come eventually. But when it does, ladies and gentlemen, the Chicago Bears have a quarterback. I don't know how good this quarterback is going to be, but he is going to be special. Is he a Hall of Famer? I mean, all this stuff is way too early. Is he going to win Super Bowls? It's all way too early. But when you talk, if you polled NFL executives and say you got 10 years coach quarterback combo, not 1 or 2 years, even maybe 5 years coach quarterback combo, anyone in the league, you poll NFL executives, Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, I think win. I think they win. Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, that's another one. They're too old. Stafford's too old. McVay's not. I don't know if McVay's going to keep coaching. But who else is there? KOC doesn't have his guy. Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy? No. And Kyle Shanahan's great. You're going to put Brock Purdy with Caleb Williams with the potential, with the insane ceiling that Caleb Williams has? What is the better coach combo? Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? They've lost the mojo right now. They can get it back. They've lost the mojo. John Harbaugh got fired with Lamar Jackson. Zach Taylor stinks with Joe Burrow. Who is it? Sean McDermott and Josh Allen? No, thank you. Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, the Bears are cooking, baby. Might be the best quarterback head coach combo in the league for the next 5-6 years, if you asked executives right now. Now, we'll talk about the Rams after the Laurence Holmes interview, but we've got one more thing to talk about. And as you know, I do not swear on this podcast very often, but for the next 5-6 minutes, I don't know how long it's going to take me to get through this, we're going to curse. And we're not going to curse because we're emotionally having an emotional outburst. We're going to curse because I'm not going to say a letter to discuss this next controversy. I'm going to say the full word because I think to discuss it, we need to truly discuss it. And that is Ben Johnson's post-game speech and the reaction that it has gotten across the league when Ben Johnson yelled, "Fuck the Packers." And as a Bears fan, as all Bears fans, you should love this. And I have not seen anyone in Chicago upset that Ben Johnson said, oh, the decorum, he is a head coach. He needs to hold himself to a higher standard. I have not seen anyone in Chicago say that. I've seen a lot of people say that, some nationally, and a lot of them who live in the state of Wisconsin. So I want to kind of talk about Ben Johnson and this whole situation. First of all, he has breathed a ton of life into this rivalry. And if you're a Green Bay Packers fan, and I doubt any of them are listening, but if you are, you should love this. Now, if you want to sit there and say, no, I want the Bears-Packers rivalry to be what it was for the last 30 years. I want to beat the piss out of the Bears and know that every year they're going 5-11 or 5-12, and that we have a better team and we just beat the hell out of them, and it's not even competitive. If that's what you want, then you don't actually want a rivalry. That's not what a rivalry is. The Bears were a doormat. We can all admit it. They were a doormat to the Packers since Favre showed up. It's been embarrassing. The Bears had a huge lead in this rivalry in terms of wins and losses 35 years ago, and now the Packers have a huge lead because they beat the piss out of Chicago for 35 years. That's what they did. And now Caleb Williams shows up and Ben Johnson shows up. And Ben Johnson, look, I appreciate Lovie Smith. One of the first things he said, if not the first thing, is we're going to beat the Packers. Like, I appreciate that, but he's a mild-mannered guy. You know, other coaches that have said it, they are all mild-mannered guys. Ditka, not mild-mannered guy. Ditka fucking hated the Green Bay Packers. Why do you think William Perry became a thing in 1985? Because Ditka was pissed off at the 49ers, who beat him in the NFC Championship game the year before, and he thought they ran up the score. So he unleashed William Perry against the 49ers and slammed him into the defensive line. And then the Green Bay Packers. He scored 2 touchdowns against the Packers, one catching the ball and one running the ball. He went out against the Packers because Mike Ditka wanted to embarrass the Green Bay Packers because he didn't like him as a player. And Forrest Gregg was the coach, and he was a dirty SOB, and he had his team playing dirty. We don't need to rehash the Matt Suey play with Kenny Stills and the Charles Martin play with Jim McMahon. We know what they did. They played dirty-ass football, and Ditka fucking hated them. So he let it fly with William Perry. That's what he wanted. When Don Majkowski won the game and there was a controversy, if I don't remember what year it was, 1990 or 89, Don Majkowski threw a game-winning touchdown pass for the Packers, and it was right on the cusp of the line of scrimmage, if he had crossed the line of scrimmage or not. And Ditka thought he had crossed the line of scrimmage. An instant replay back then was fuzzy, right? They'd freeze the game. It was a little out of focus. You couldn't quite tell on the screen. It was right up against the line of scrimmage. Ditka was convinced he was over the line of scrimmage. The play shouldn't have counted. The refs didn't see it that way. They allowed the touchdown. Packers won that game. In the media guide for years, there was an asterisk next to that win, and it said instant replay game. Ditka hated the Packers. It was a rivalry, and the Bears beat the hell out of the Packers in the 80s because the Packers sucked. That's what it was to Ditka. And then once that comes in, maybe he appreciated it, maybe he didn't. Teams weren't very good. Favre comes in, starts turning the rivalry. Lovie makes it, it's a little even for 4 or 5 years. Good for Lovie. And then really since about 2007, or really when Aaron Rodgers came in, it got really ugly. I mean, Favre, it was ugly. Aaron Rodgers, it got really ugly. So now you got Ben Johnson breathing life into it. Not liking Matt LaFleur, bad handshakes, being pissed off if they lost a game to the Packers, which he did for the first game of the year. That's a rivalry. That's what a rivalry should be. So as a Packers fan, if you truly want a rivalry with the Chicago Bears, you should appreciate that the Bears are no longer a doormat. You should appreciate that Ben Johnson yelled, "Fuck the Packers." Because you should appreciate that these games are going to be wars twice a year, a third if they meet in the playoffs, because these two teams do not like each other, and that they are going to, when the schedule comes out and players, what's the first thing they do? They look at the bye. They want to know when they're off. I get it. It's their job. They want to know when they're going to get a few days off. But what you want Bears players to do and what you want Packers players to do after they look at the bye, when the hell are we playing when are the Bears and the Packers playing? That's what you want in a rivalry. You want it to matter to everyone. You want to be just elated or furious when the game ends, depending on what side of the coin you're on in that day. That's what a rivalry is. And if Packers fans don't want that, then you don't actually want a rivalry and you're cowards. And I don't think all Packers fans are cowards. Some of them are. But to clutch your pearls, oh my goodness, would Vince Lombardi have said that? Ben Johnson is a classless individual. We didn't know. Dan Campbell kept him under wraps. How could he? How could he? Is that how Tom Landry would have behaved? Would you ever have seen that out of Bill Walsh? What have the Bears become? They are just they're despicable. How could they be? Like, what is this bullshit? Because I'll tell you what, when Aaron Rodgers scored that touchdown and looked up at the fans, and he didn't say, "I own you." He said, "I fucking own you." And it hit all of us in the soul, in the heart. You felt it, and it crushed you, right? Like, it's just in that moment, you're like, oh my God. Like, not only does he know he's dominant, he knows what he's doing to the fan base. And it crushed all of us. And why did it crush all of us? Because there was no defense. There was oh yeah? Well, what about? No, he did fucking own us for that entire time, which is why I wanted him to play in that Steelers game and the Bears to beat the piss out of him. And that to be his final taste of Chicago. Didn't happen. I'll have to live with the fact that he looked like ass in the playoffs and the Steelers lost again. That's what it's going to have to be. How was that pick six, Aaron? How was that fumble for a touchdown, Aaron? Those are the last two times you touched the football in your career. Oh! But anyways, back to the task at hand. When Aaron Rodgers said he fucking owned us, we knew he fucking owned us. And that's why we hated it so much. Because we knew it was true. And we knew there was nothing on the horizon to think the Chicago Bears were going to change this anytime soon. It wasn't Mitch Trubisky. It wasn't Justin Fields. Jay Cutler had his shot. It wasn't any of them. Aaron Rodgers was too good. And the Bears couldn't beat him. That's it. That was the end of the story. But I'll tell you what, I didn't see one Packer fan going, that was out of line from Aaron. His beef should be with the Bears players. That's who he's playing. He's not going up against the fans. Aaron, that was out of line. No, they were all just like, hell yeah. They have, Aaron Rodgers, owner of the Chicago Bears. Like, they had it everywhere. There were T-shirts. They loved it. So Ben Johnson does it, and it's, oh, the horror. Stop being so hypocritical. And if your response is that's not how a coach is going to should be behaving. And I'm sure there are other examples of this. But I'll tell you what, the cameras haven't been in the locker room for very long. I remember, I don't know, not too long ago, 4, 5, 6 years ago. Years, they blend together. Antonio Brown live streamed a Mike Tomlin post-game speech on his Facebook page. And Mike Tomlin freaked out. Antonio Brown did a lot of things wrong. And I'm not saying he should have done that because he didn't have permission to do it. He just did it. And Mike Tomlin, I don't remember what it was. He said a couple things that maybe other people wouldn't have appreciated. But that's why coaches talk in locker rooms. And if you don't realize that, if you don't understand how coaches are in the locker rooms with their players, that's fine. But trust me, this is what goes on in locker rooms. Football locker rooms especially. A lot of testosterone going around in that room. So yes, Ben Johnson yelled, "Fuck the Packers." But if you don't think coaches yell something like that, just Google Brian Billick, "fuck the Titans." It'll come up. You'll get a YouTube clip because Brian Billick, when the Baltimore Ravens on their run to the Super Bowl beat the Tennessee Titans, that are in-division rivals, right? That was a bit of a rivalry back then. Because again, the Titans were the Houston Oilers. They were staying in the division. And then the South, when they split up into the 4 divisions, that was when there were 3 divisions. When they split up into the 4 divisions, they weren't in the same run. But that was a rivalry back then. And Brian Billick says, "Hey, turn off all the cameras in the locker room." And then he yelled at the top of his lungs, "Fuck the Titans." But one camera, he put the camera facing the floor. It looked like he wasn't filmed, but he left the camera rolling. Brian Billick did that. Brian Billick, one of the most mild-mannered coaches. Brian Billick did that. You don't think other coaches have done that? You don't think Mike Ditka said things like that about the Packers in the locker room? I mean, come on. Stop clutching your pearls. Stop pretending this was some horrific thing. I mean, stop pretending that this is something that needs to be investigated. Ben Johnson has breathed life back into this rivalry. He has leveled the playing field. And it's awesome. Not just for the Bears, but for the Packers. And I put out some stuff on social media about it. And a lot of Packers fans were, "Oh, how could you defend it?" There were some Packers fans that are like, "I love it. The rivalry is back. This is a rivalry." And I appreciate those Packers fans. There's not a lot of Packers fans I can appreciate, but I appreciate those Packers fans because they get it. They get what this rivalry should be. And this rivalry hasn't been like this in a long freaking time. Because I'll tell you what, it was a rivalry in the 80s, but the Bears always won. And in the 70s, both these teams sucked. You got to go back to the 1960s and the early part of the 1960s when both these teams were good. And yes, Lombardi beat the Bears more than not, but the Bears still won a championship in 63. The Bears were good football teams. They had a really good defense. They won games back then. Like, you've got to go back 60 years for both these teams to be consistently good, where this rivalry, not only was it heated, but it mattered. And over time, because both teams stuck in the 70s, and then the Packers still stunk in the 80s. And in the 90s, I mean, the Bears stunk basically for the last 35 years, and the Packers dominated. We haven't seen it like this. This is what the NFL needs. This is what the Bears and the Packers rivalry needs. It needs a little spice. It needs a little hate. That's what it needs. And Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams are bringing it back. Caleb Williams grating cheese on the Amazon postgame show with his tongue out. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. It shouldn't matter that not only did you beat the Packers, you beat them in the playoffs, and you beat them in epic damn fashion. That's what this rivalry is about. And it's goddamn awesome. And if you're religious, I'm sorry, it needed to be said. I will get back to the decorum that a podcast host should have, and I will stop cursing, I think, for the remainder of this podcast. But there was no way we were addressing that story without truly addressing that story the way it needed to be. All right. Laurence Holmes of The Score. He joins me next. Bill Zimmerman, Bears Banter. We'll be right back. Welcome back into the podcast. Always fun to talk to this man. He's been a part of the Chicago sports media landscape for a long time. In fact, I was thinking about this. I think when I was a producer at The Score a long time ago, one of the first shows I did was Jim Thome getting traded to the White Sox, and Laurence Holmes was talking about it. Spiegel and Holmes, of course, on The Score, his House of L YouTube page. Make sure you check out all his content there. And he joins me now. Laurence, Bill Zimmerman, how you doing?
Yeah, it's been a long time. Like in May, it'll be 29 years.
29 years. Wow. You got a big plan here for the 30th. You're going to have a blowout in 2027?
Yeah, I think I'm going to retire.
That's certainly a good plan too. Laurence, let's dive into this. I want to talk a little bit Packers, a little big picture, and obviously want to get your thoughts on this Rams game coming up. This Packers game was absolutely wild. And I talked about it before you came on here that I was pretty beside myself. I hadn't gotten so upset at watching my television when Gervon Dexter blew the fumble recovery. My dogs ran away from me. Like it was an emotional game, but by the end, this is one of the most exciting Bears postseason games ever, and it's right up there. It might be one of the best in NFL history.
Pretty legendary to come back from 21-3, like that is, and for it to be against the Packers, like if this happened against like the Carolina Panthers or the Eagles, it would have been cool. But for it to happen against the Packers in the way that it did in Soldier Field, nighttime audience there, everyone was so fired up, man. It's been cool to watch the way that this is evolved throughout the season. We keep seeing these games that the Bears are playing where it looks like they've got no shot to win, or they look like they're completely off balance, and then they find it. They're able to find it, and I don't have a reason for it. Like I know you've been talking about it too. Like that, it doesn't make sense. And maybe it do a little Occam's razor. Maybe it's just that they have a quarterback who doesn't flinch in those moments where other quarterbacks tend to. It's amazing that he's able to do this, especially being as young as he is in the league. When you add in that it's a new system for him and that he's 2 years into the league, the way that he responds in those moments is huge.
Yeah, it really is. And when I bring this name back, I'm not trying to bring up any polarizing things. It's just when Justin Fields was in the developmental phase the first couple of years, some of the Chicago media members were bringing, yeah, but he doesn't look good in the fourth quarter. And they're throwing up stats, and Bears fans are like, yeah, but he doesn't have a receiver. He doesn't have this. He doesn't have that. And going through everything. And we see Fields a few years later, he's still struggling in some of those certain areas, of course. With Caleb Williams, even while he's trying to figure out all this, Laurence, and he's still in the developmental phase, the one thing we see, even last year with Matt Eberflus and the debacle around him, I know the Commanders game was a loss, but he brought them back and gave Washington very little time.
The Detroit game on Thanksgiving.
The Detroit game. We saw so many times where like the ice water was in his veins, and he is just a different cat out there.
Yeah, he did it against the Rams for a win last year too, which is interesting to set up what happens on Sunday. But yeah, I was a Justin guy, and I felt like with proper development, and I still feel this way, and I know that it looks bad for Justin in his career, but I still think with proper development, there's a good quarterback in there. What we're seeing with Caleb is that there's already a guy that in those moments isn't scared and knows what to do and plays with a freedom and a joy that is rare to see from NFL quarterbacks. And seeing that play out the way that it has, and Colston Loveland becoming this epic target, like this complete mismatch for defenses, is those two guys, and you add in Luther Burden, and maybe you add in Rome, and you're talking about one of the best offensive forces, one of the best passing games evolving in the league over the next couple of years. Like that's a lot of fun for every Bears fan to wrap their mind around, that they're the team that defenses have to spend nights burning the midnight oil trying to get prepared for. Because with Caleb, I know that I've listened to a bunch of different defenders throughout the season go, I hate playing against him, because you think you have him and then you don't. And the stuff that he's doing on the move is impressive enough. When he puts it together, and he's been putting it together for the last few weeks, the pocket game too, it's hard to imagine how you're going to consistently shut him down. I'm not saying they'll never lose again, but you have to figure out a way to keep your defensive ends hungry enough to go rush him, but not too hungry that they break contain and let him get outside. We know that the Packers were like, well, we'll push him left. That's going to be our strategy. And you push him left, and he makes one of the greatest throws this season on that 4th and 8. So all of the stuff that you think you can do to kind of neutralize him, I think the only thing that still works is if you get A-gap pressure. Like if you get pressure up the middle, he retreats, like because he's not the tallest quarterback, so he retreats. But unless you're getting that consistently, if you give him time, he is going to turn your lights out.
And when you've got Jonah Jackson, Joe Thuney, and Drew Dahlman, who all had outstanding seasons, you're not going to get as much A-gap pressure. So that is a huge, I completely agree with that. Now, you were talking about like you can't quite explain it. And I agree, you can't. I mean, the amount of magic they've pulled out of their hats this year is incredible. And there's certainly a belief and a culture that Ben Johnson has already built, especially compared to where this team was 12 months ago, that is already there and a big part of it. But the one thing, Laurence, and it's talked about a little bit, I haven't seen it a lot in the national discourse and even as much in the local discourse, is Ben Johnson and even Dennis Allen and the coaching that they're doing throughout the body of each one of these games. Because I don't think you can overstate what they're doing in terms of the information that they're bringing in, watching what these opponents are doing. And, Ben Johnson, everything he does has a purpose. He's not just be like, all right, let's call run, let's call pass, let's do a short yardage play. Like he is constantly setting things up. He is playing chess. And we see what he's doing with like this Packers game, what he's doing with bunch formations and getting the defense to come up and up and up. And suddenly he releases DJ Moore behind him, game-winning touchdown. Like we see what Ben Johnson is doing and Dennis Allen, where they look better in the 3rd and 4th quarters, I truly believe, because these coaches are putting these players in a position to succeed.
Let's keep it a buck. Matt LaFleur had the better game plan going into the game on Saturday. They did everything right. They scored points. They shut down the Bears offense. They had a 21-3 lead. I know that we probably make too much out of the concept of halftime adjustments because adjustments are happening from series to series, right? Like you're making your adjustments, but the corrections that the Bears made in the second half is impressive. The level of DA figuring out, okay, I'm going to stay aggressive, but now I'm going to change how I'm going to invert some of the blitzing that we're going to do to try and throw Jordan Love off. And then, like you said, Ben Johnson being able to set defenses up, going back to that second Packers game where you're in 13 personnel and you run it. You're in 13 personnel and you run it. You're in 13 personnel and you run it. And then you play action off of it and you get DJ Moore one-on-one down the field. You have conditioned the defense to think that you're one thing, and then you flip it on them and come up with a game-winning play. He is thinking steps ahead, and we're honestly not used to this.
We're not.
We're not. Like there was a moment in time for both Mike Martz. I think that he was definitely trying to set some stuff up, and Matt Nagy, when he finally kind of got through a little bit to Mitch Trubisky, but there hasn't been a lot of this. It's kind of been like hanging on, and you have a coach now that can play with the big boys. Like he can compete with LaFleur and McVay and KOC, all Liam Cohen, like all of the guys that you think are the really good play callers. The Bears now have one, and for that to be the case, it's blowing the mind of Bears fans that they have a coach that can do that.
Yeah, and like you said, we're not used to this. I think almost as media members, and look, I know we all watch the NFL. We follow the entire league. We're not all just isolated in our Bears bubble. So we know about what McVay's doing in KOC and Shanahan and these great play callers. But we're not watching it week to week and going through it with a fine-tooth comb, maybe bringing up the all 22, looking at everything. We're not studying film. We're not Brian Baldinger, studying like all 16 games every week. We're focused on Chicago and these type of things. So watching what he's doing it's so much fun, Laurence, from just a coverage perspective of seeing, like, to me, this is like a Monet. This is a Van Gogh, seeing what he's able to do. Like you're bringing up the 13 personnel he did with the Packers. He did the same thing with the Eagles, where they were just running the heck out of the ball using 13, and then suddenly Cole Kmet releases behind the defense, and it's a touchdown and puts the game away. Like, this is stuff we're seeing week in and week out. And the other thing I love about Ben Johnson is his accountability. And I think that's gone I bring it up almost every week. It's gone so far with the players, and I don't want to bring it all back to Matt Eberflus, but him going up there every week and saying, we just need to execute better and we'll be fine. We had a good game plan, kind of just putting it on the players all the time. If Ben Johnson doesn't like what he did, he stands up there and goes, yeah, I screwed that up. And when you do that in front of the media and in the locker room, you're asking for that same accountability. I think it goes so far in the locker room.
You're 100% right. I remember going up there for training camp and some people up there saying to me, it's completely different than what they experienced last year. And that difference was in the way that things were presented to players, like him walking in the door and saying something that my good friend Olin Kreutz talks about all the time. You open up the media guide and you see someone who works for the Bears. Olin always says you can just take their title and make it in charge of players. Like, you're there to optimize the players, no matter what your role is. Player development is your job. If you're the cook, if you're the janitor, whatever your role is, player development is what you're about. And he said that when he walked in. So then you get to training camp and you hear the stories how Eberflus let veterans kind of stay at home. And Ben Johnson was like, no, everyone's at the hotel. We're all going to be in this together. So it starts there. Kevin Byard saying that he hit more in practice this year than the last few years that he was in the NFL. And he ends up with an all-pro season. This guy had a plan. And so far, the plan has worked to perfection. And I love seeing it. I love how passionate he is about it. And when you get the proof of concept, when you get the winning behind it, then guys start to believe even more. And I think that's the snowball that's rolling downhill right now, Bill. Like, I think that those guys are like, whoa, coach told us that this was going to happen, this was going to happen, and this was going to happen, and it's happened. And you can use that successfully as a tool.
Yeah, 100%. All right, two more for you, Laurence. Obviously, I want to get your thoughts on the Rams game, but before I do, I have to ask you about, I don't think it's a controversy, but I know a lot of people north of the Illinois-Wisconsin border weren't happy with the viral good, better, best with Ben Johnson saying F the Packers. I loved it. He's not the first coach that did it. Brian Billick did it, after the Ravens beat the Titans 25 years ago. I love this kind of passion. I love that he's, fanning the flames and turning this rivalry back into something. Did you have any issue with Ben Johnson not showing the proper decorum of a head coach?
Not at all. I had zero problem with it. In fact, I applaud it. I think that for years, Bears fans have been waiting for an advocate, and we've heard all of the anecdotes about George, for example, going to weddings and having Packers urinal cakes put in the bathroom, stuff like that. The Bears fans have needed someone to stand up to the bully. Okay. And now there's a guy that's done it. Like, he walked in the door, and other coaches have said, hey, we want to beat the Packers. Like, that's different. Like, that's a different thing. And it's different guys. I covered Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith was never going to react like that. One, he doesn't cuss. But two, it's just not who he is. As long as it's genuine, and from all accounts, this is who Ben is. And there might be some repercussions of that, but he is being authentic. And I can't be mad at him for voicing his opinion on this and being with his guys and reacting the same. This is why Bears fans rock with him, is because he acts like that and he's great at his job, that he embodies everything that every Bears fan has ever wanted to say to the Packers and to their fan base. So the fact that you actually have someone that's not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, it matters. It's connected him. Everything that you've seen in those videos that the Bears have put out from the locker room have mattered. The Wiener Circle stuff mattered. It meant that he was paying attention to the world around him, that he wants to embrace this community and be its leader. And so it's going to be hard to, I know there are a couple of people that have clutched pearls. I am not one of them. Do you? If that's how you get down like that, and Bears fans will support it.
They will, and they love the passion, and they just, like I said, it's just it's going through the veins. Just everyone just feeling Ben Johnson and what he's bringing, not just to the Bears, but to this entire city.
Absolutely.
Let's finish up here with the Rams. I think this is going to be an interesting one. They're field goal 4-point favorite, whatever it is. I don't think that's a surprise. Bears are an underdog at home seemingly every week,
which is crazy.
I think with the way this Bears offense is playing, hopefully they can run the ball a little better this week. This Rams defense, they do not have a good secondary. I think this has a chance to be a high-scoring game. And Laurence, I have thrown out the window picking against this team because they just keep finding a way. How do you see this one playing out?
The secondary is not good, but the pass rush is. And they've got a couple of guys that can make your life difficult. So that is something that I'm worried about. I do think that there's a hidden advantage. The Bears special teams better than LA's. LA has had a problem. Cairo Santos has done a really good job, like kind of perfecting that dirty kickoff thing and getting it to the ball to go sideways as it lands in the landing zone. So I dig like kind of what they're doing. And Devin Duvernay, and I've said it on the score the last couple of days, he's the hidden yards. Like that guy was a hidden hero inside of the game against the Packers because he gave them field position. I can't wait to see what this matchup looks like because Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford are of one mind. And I love that. Like they're so connected. I think they're the model for what you hope Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams turn into over the next couple of years. And seeing two of the guys that I think are just great at drawing up offenses go up against each other is so exciting. But I completely understand your point. I'm guessing whether or not the Bears are going to win is it drives people crazy. Like maybe you're better off waiting until they get down. And if you're going to bet it when the odds are in your favor big time. Like if you bet the Bears when they were down 21-3, you'd have made a grip off of that. And there were a lot of games this year where that was the case. So maybe this is another one. Maybe you don't put your money on the Bears before the game starts. And then right when they're down 10 or 17, you got them right where you want them. And then you buck up and you get yourself some dough.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw this when I saw this on Twitter. Teams down 10 or more points with 6 minutes to go. The Bears are 3-3. The rest of the league is 3-158.
Unbelievable.
There he is, Laurence Holmes of The Score. Of course, Spiegel and Holmes, you can catch him there every weekday. And of course, make sure you check out that YouTube page, The House of L. Laurence, thank you for that interview. And this is going to be, it's a fun ride already, and we'll see how much longer this can go.
Bill, I know that you're loving this. Chicago is on fire, man. The stuff I've seen over the last 48 hours is amazing. Watching people just enjoy themselves. Like I don't live very far from President Obama's house. And I went by there on Sunday and there were Bears fans like outside his house, like posing, and they're in their Bears gear. So seeing the city be as happy as it's been has been a real joy for me.
All right, there he is, Laurence Holmes, everybody. Laurence always gives you a good spot. I really enjoyed that one. I don't always agree with all Lawrence's takes. I don't agree with his Justin Fields take, but that's okay. We can disagree. Great minds don't always agree. We disagree there. But I agree with a lot of what Laurence had to say there, and I agree like 100%. And again, enjoy this ride. It may look, if the Bears don't win the Super Bowl at some point, there's going to be a sour taste in your mouth, but that should fade quickly because the Chicago Bears this is just unbelievable what this team keeps managing to do. Let's get to the mailbag. Let's talk about this Rams game a little bit, and let's wrap it up. And we can all turn our attention to Sunday night, where the Bears will take on the Rams. But let's get to the mailbag. Let's start with Brendan Shagrew. Money aside, does the recent success at Soldier Field, combined with weather aiding in home field advantage deep in the season, make you want the Bears to just stay there? It's a dump, but it's our dump. I like where you're coming from, Brendan. I do. I get it. And look, if I had my druthers, if you said, Bill, what do you want? I want the Chicago Bears to build a stadium in the city of Chicago on the lakefront that they can own and get all the revenue streams that they want, with a retractable roof that they do not close for the cold, that they close for the Super Bowl when they host it, that they close for the Final Four, the Big Ten championship, any neutral site type game, whatever event that they're going to have, concerts in the winter, whatever they can do, close it then. But leave it open 99% of the time for football games. If it's going to be a torrential downpour, something like that, where it's just going to be dangerous for players to play kind of thing, like it was against the 49ers 4 years ago, whatever that was. You want to close it for that? Okay, fine. Cold weather, snow, leave it open. Let Chicago be Chicago. Brendan, that's what I want. But that's not on the table. And I get it. I want the Chicago Bears to compete the way they need to compete. I want the Bears to have the revenue streams that they want to have. What do I want? I want Soldier Field to be leveled. I want the city to sell the property to the Bears. I want the Bears to play someplace crappy for 2 years, Indianapolis, back in Champaign, whatever it's going to be, while they build this thing. That's what I want. It's not on the table. And it sucks that it's not on the table. So, yes, would I love elements to continue to be a part of Chicago Bears football? I would. It's just not on the cards. So, is it going to be the same? Is it going to be a little antiseptic when they're playing in a closed roof? It's just going to be a dome. It's not going to be a retractable roof. It's going to be a dome. Is it going to suck a little? Yeah, it's going to suck a little. But I would rather, and I think this might be an unpopular opinion, I would rather the Bears be able to build something that actually benefits the team. Because if the Bears add more revenue streams, there's more they can do to help the team. And look, we'll just talk about it logistically. I used to talk to Brad Spielberg about this all the time. People like to say the salary cap is a myth. It's a myth if you want it to be a myth. Depends on how much cash an owner is willing to spend. Because you can technically be way over the salary cap if you're willing to convert salary to bonuses. You convert salary to bonuses, it affects the way things are on the cap. You can spread it out over years, and then you pay that cash to the player, and it's not on the salary cap. So you can convert these salaries to bonuses and pay these guys. They get their money up front, and you can go over the salary cap in essence. The Bears can't play that game that much because they are a poor cash flow team. They just are. They are billionaires because of their asset, not because of their cash flow. So the McCaskies, I'm not saying they're broke. I'm not saying they paid Khalil Mack when the Raiders couldn't afford to pay Khalil Mack. They gave Ben Johnson a big contract. I'm not saying they're broke, but I'm also saying they are not in a position to take 7 or 8 players, convert their money to bonuses, get their cash out, get them, a lot of their money off the cap so they can keep bringing in free agents. The Bears aren't a team that can do that. But if the Bears have more revenue streams, and I think George McCaskey would operate this way. I really do. I don't think he wants to put it in his pocket. I think George McCaskey wants to win football games. I think George is a great guy. I think George is a fan. I think George loves the Chicago Bears. I think he wants to go 17-0 every year, and he will do everything he can to do that. The problem is George is a bad owner. He doesn't understand football enough. He doesn't understand all the logistics. He makes poor decisions. He's too loyal. He holds on to poor employees too long, and it hurts the Bears. So if George has the assets to help this team, I think he will. I don't know that for sure. I don't know the man personally, but I really think that's what he wants. So for the Chicago Bears, I think having the revenue streams that they need so that, I know this sounds crazy, so the billionaire owners can have more money, I think they'll actually invest it back into the team a lot and make the team a lot better and make the team more competitive and make this next 20 years of Ben Johnson. That's what I said. The next 20 years as Ben Johnson as the Bears head coach, make it worth our while. That's what I think will happen if the Bears have a better stadium. So while is it perfect, Brendan? It is certainly not. I think it is still better in the long run for the Chicago Bears for this to happen. How about our guy Mason West from our own Second City Gridiron podcast channel? The city was electric before, during, and after that game. This week, Bears are sending out surveys about Northwest Indiana. What, if any, difference can this playoff run make for a push to stay in Illinois? Can vibes narrow the gap between Illinois and the Bears? Mason, I'm glad you brought that up because, yes, as a season ticket holder, I did receive this survey and I did fill it out. It took quite a while. They had a lot of questions and a lot of questions I didn't care about, but I still had to answer them. They had questions about food. What kind of food do you want? What kind of alcohol do you want? Like, what level of alcohol do you want? Like vodkas. Do you want Smirnoff? Do you want Tito's? Do you want Grey Goose? Do you want Kettle One? Or do you want like labels I've never even heard of? Because I'm not a connoisseur of bottles that are $300, $400, $500 a bottle. Like, which tier alcohol would you most likely drink? They had everything. What kind of food do you want? Do you want dine-in restaurants? Do you want restaurants off campus, on campus? How do you want to spend your time before the game? Do you want to go to a restaurant? Do you want to go to a bar? Do you want to tailgate after the game? All this stuff. Stadium seating. Where would you want to sit? Would you spend this much PSL? And PSLs, they do have stuff about financing, and you can have your PSLs paid off after 10 years. That makes it more palatable, but those numbers are big. Oh, they're all 5 digits, unless you're in the upper deck. They are 5 digits a seat. You are going to have to pay if you are a Bears season ticket holder. And how would you spend on those? They had so many, and they had questions about fan experiences. Would this be of interest? Would that be of interest? Do you want to meet with coaches before the game and they can go over game plan? Does that sound awesome? Yeah, it does. Do I want Declan Doyle out? No, I want Declan Doyle in the locker room doing last second stuff. I don't need Declan Doyle talking to fans. Sorry, not interested in that, even though the concept sounds fun, but no, I want the Bears to win. Thank you. But the bottom line here is they also had questions about Northwest Indiana. And what would your thoughts be about the team being in Northwest Indiana? And would you spend time going to a restaurant before the game or after the game, or tailgating before the game or after the game if the Bears were in Northwest Indiana? And I was honest. I said no. And they gave a chance for extra comments. And I said, I think, and don't talk about the Giants and Jets playing in New Jersey. I said, I think if you move the Chicago Bears to Indiana, you are wrecking the brand. I mean, is it like it's terrible and they're going to lose the whole fan base? No, but you are going to take a really special brand. You're going to knock it down a peg or two. So Mason, I think moving to Indiana is a terrible idea. I do think it's a leverage play. I do think they want to try and get something done in Arlington Heights. I think that's completely dead. I still think that's unfortunate because I would love to see the Bears, as I said to Brendan, in the Chicago city limits. I just don't think that's something that's on the table. I think Arlington Heights is kind of on the table, and I think this will swing eventually to what they need in Arlington Heights. Maybe the NFL will change their rules because the NFL has a rule that they can only loan you $300 million. Maybe the NFL is just like, all right, we're going to change that. There's inflation. We're going to change it to $1 billion. and that you can borrow $1 billion from the NFL or $750 million from the NFL, and then that's going to close the gap for the Bears, and they can be done, and they can get their stadium. Like, that's the kind of thing that I think might happen, and the owners will vote on it in March, and they'll get it through, and the Bears will do it, and it'll be done. Like, I think something like that could happen. The NFL will literally change the rules for the Bears, because here's the thing, and I know Bears fans all the time are like, McCaskies need to sell, and I get it. They don't have enough cash flow. I get it. They've made a lot of poor choices. I get it. Roger Goodell wants George Halas's grandson running the Chicago Bears. He does. He wants George Halas's family in the NFL. He does not want Jeff Bezos owning the Bears and for George Halas's family to disappear. Now, if the McCaskies one day decide to sell, I don't think Roger Goodell's going to stand in the way. But he may pull him aside and be like, are you sure you want to do this? You sure you don't want to sell 49% of the team? Keep it at 51%. Like, he is going to want the Halas family here. Like, I guarantee you, if you ask him, the one thing he's disappointed in is that Virginia wasn't a man. And I don't mean that to be some sexist thing, but it's because she took McCaskey's name. And the Roger Goodell would love the name Halas to still own the Chicago Bears, but it's McCaskey. Like, that's what I think that name matters to the league. They love that the Chicago Bears are still owned by the Halas family. And I don't think they want that to change under any circumstances. And if they understand that the Bears can't get the stadium they truly want and the revenue streams that they truly want, it's going to make the Bears harder to compete in the current NFL when you have cash flow billionaires coming in that are worth 15, 20, 30, 40 billion, and they buy a team for 8 billion and they still got 25 billion left over. They can build their own stadium for 5 billion and still have 20 billion left over, and they still got cash just coming in from everywhere. That's who the Bears need to compete with. So they need the revenue streams to be able to compete with it. And I think Roger Goodell understands that, and he's going to want to do what he can do to keep the Bears in the Halas family and give the Bears the stadium that they need to get the revenue streams they need to compete with the rest of the league. So I think Northwest Indiana is not going to happen in the long run. And I hope that season ticket holders and people that did fill out that survey told the Bears that they think Indiana is a terrible idea. And I'm sure there's some season ticket holders in Indiana that said, hell yeah, I want it in my backyard. And I get it. If you live, on Roosevelt Avenue in Chicago and you can walk to Soldier Field, you want the Bears to stay at Soldier Field. You don't want to go out to Arlington Heights. Like, I get it. Sometimes it's better for you individually, and that's what you want. But for the fan base as a whole, Mason, the Bears need to stay in Illinois. And I do think the Bears will eventually stay in Illinois when this is all said and done. TJ Gobig, does the thought of this being a Coleman-Shelton revenge game frighten you? Well, after careful consideration, TJ, no. No, it does not. We got one more here from Ron Reich. Question for the mailbag. Is there any QB in the NFL you'd trade straight up for Caleb Williams? If so, who? Take contracts and age into consideration. I'd especially like to hear your thoughts on Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Drake May. All right, Ron, that is a good question. That is an interesting question. I am not 100% certain. So let's think about this. Let's get this through. Is there anyone I would trade for? All right. Well, first of all, it's got to be high up on the list. Like, I do my quarterback rankings, right? There are the 4 elite quarterbacks: Burrow, Mahomes, Jackson, Allen. So there's those 4 we have to talk about. Then the rest of the top 10, Justin Herbert gags in the postseason. I'm not interested in Justin Herbert. There are other guys, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts, Matthew Stafford's too old. We're not going to consider Matthew Stafford. Dak Prescott, all these guys. All that level of veterans that are not on rookie contracts, no. I'm not trading Caleb Williams for any of those. Drake May on a rookie deal we've got. Let's talk about Jaden Daniels too. There's none of the other rookies from recent memory. Not CJ Stroud. No way. Not the way he's playing. Not Bryce Young. I forgot the name Bryce Young. So CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson. No, like we're not talking about any of the, Cam Ward. He looked pretty nice. Certainly not Cam Ward. So we're talking the 4 top quarterbacks, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. We got 6 guys to talk about. Let's talk about them. Let's start with Jaden Daniels. The answer is no. I know Jaden Daniels had a great run as a rookie. Jaden Daniels was running an RPO offense, not the same kind of offense, complicated offense that Ben Johnson is running with Caleb Williams. Jaden Daniels is getting hurt a lot, and I do not trust that Jaden Daniels can stay healthy enough to be a quarterback that you can rely on. So Jaden Daniels is out. Drake May is interesting because, look, Drake May had a better season than Caleb Williams. And look, Josh McDaniels is an excellent offensive coordinator. I think Ben Johnson is better. If Drake May was in the Bears offense, could he potentially be even better than he was? Potentially. I don't know. Drake May is interesting. Let's put Drake May as a maybe, and let's move on to the other 4. Joe Burrow. Now, some of this is going to sound crazy, and it's absolutely biased. Don't get anything by that. This is absolutely 100% biased. Joe Burrow is a no, and Lamar Jackson is a no. And that is not to say that I think Caleb Williams is a better quarterback than them. I'm taking contract, and I'm taking potential. Lamar Jackson had flashes this year. He did not look like the same quarterback. Joe Burrow gets hurt frequently. Joe Burrow, the way he plays, takes a lot of bad hits. Joe Burrow, how old is he? He's got to be getting close to 30. He's got to be 28, 29, right? Joe Burrow is 29 years old. So Joe Burrow's about to hit 30. And yes, Joe Burrow could play till he's 40, but Joe Burrow, with the kind of hits he takes, may only be effective till he's 35. So do I want 5 years of Joe Burrow? There's a good chance with Ben Johnson I'm going to win a Super Bowl, but I don't know about the long-term success there. And same with Lamar Jackson. Lamar's getting banged a decent amount. Lamar Jackson, MVP caliber player, but Lamar Jackson is on a down year. Do I want to commit to Lamar Jackson when he is 29 years old as well? I don't know if I want to. And now you're talking about Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is a little older than them. Patrick Mahomes is now on the wrong side of 30. He's going to be 31 towards the start of this NFL season. I think you have to say yes to Patrick Mahomes, but not as confidently as I would have a year ago or 2 years ago. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, this Chiefs offense did not look good this year. Was it Patrick Mahomes' fault? Was it Matt Nagy's fault? Was it Andy Reid's fault? I don't know. I didn't watch enough Chiefs game on the All-22 and break down and see exactly what the problem was. But I do know the Chiefs were broken this year. And do I want to, trade Caleb Williams straight up for a quarterback that may not be the same guy? I don't know. Josh Allen. Now, Josh Allen is an interesting one because Josh Allen is insane. He is insanely good right now, and he is carrying a pretty mediocre football team to success, and he just won a playoff game. Josh Allen's going to be 30 in the offseason. Josh Allen obviously makes a ton of money, just like Mahomes. Josh Allen is Superman. I think you can make the argument now that Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the NFL, including Patrick Mahomes. I have not taken Mahomes off that pedestal in years. Basically since he passed Brady. When he passed Brady, when Brady's set last year in Tampa, whatever it was, I haven't even considered saying anyone's better than Mahomes. I'd consider saying Josh Allen is better than Mahomes. MVP caliber player every year. He obviously won it last year. Could make the argument he won it this year. He didn't win enough games. Matthew Stafford, Drake May, we'll see. Josh Allen is that good. So to me, there's only 3 names I would consider, and that is Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Drake May. Now, I don't think Drake May took a lot of sacks still this year. I don't think Drake May, he's athletic, but he's like John Elway athletic. He's not Caleb Williams athletic. I think knowing what Caleb did in his first year with Ben Johnson, and again, this isn't the question. I want to see another full year with Ben Johnson because I think a year from now, 1 year from January 13th, when we're recording this podcast, I would say that there's a good chance that Caleb Williams will be the better quarterback in the 2026 NFL season. So I'm going to say no to Drake May. And because of what I think the short-term success would be with Ben Johnson, I'm going to say yes to Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. And I don't even like saying it, because I love Caleb Williams that much, and I'm so excited that he's this good of a quarterback, Ron. I'm going to say yes to those guys, but reluctantly say yes. And if you told me, no, you don't get them, that's fine. I will ride and die with Caleb Williams. I love what he's done for the Bears. I love what he's done for this offense. I love what he's done for the city of Chicago. All right, let's talk about this Rams game. Let's wrap up this edition of Bears Banter. I've had a lot of fun talking Chicago Bears. I can't remember the last time I've had this much fun having a podcast and doing a podcast episode. Maybe when Caleb Williams was lighting it up early on in the Matt Eberflus. Yeah, I know that sounds funny. Those first couple games, Jacksonville and Carolina, when it looked like Caleb's was about to break out, those were fun podcasts. I was flying high with those podcasts. I have not a lot of opportunities because since I've started doing this podcast, been a lot of bad Bear seasons. So let's talk about this game. Rams are favored. When the LA Rams play their best football, I truly believe they're the best team in the NFL. But the LA Rams don't always play their best brand of football. Like if I brought up the LA Rams schedule and we said, when was the last time the LA Rams were playing elite football? All right, I'm going to bring this up. I got to clear my throat here. Hang on. All right, here we go. They beat the Panthers in the wild card round 34-31. They did not play well. They pulled away late against the Arizona Cardinals in week 18. They did not play well. They lost to the Falcons in week 17. They did not play well. Now, they did have a good game for a chunk of the Seahawks game. They lost that one 38-37. They had a good 3 quarters. They fell apart in the fourth quarter of that game. Maybe the Rams-Lions game. They won that one 41-34, crushed the Cardinals the week before that, but then they lost to the Panthers, but then they crushed the Bucks and beat the Seahawks and the 49ers week before that. So that's the stretch we're talking about. They had a really good stretch. I'm going to wind all the way back here. October 12th, beat the Ravens 17-3. Beat the Jaguars 35-7. Beat the Saints 34-10. Beat the 49ers on the road 42-26. Beat the Seahawks at home 21-19. Beat the Bucks 34-7. Blip against the Panthers 31-28. Crushed the and they lost that one. Crushed the Cardinals 45-17. Beat the Lions 41-34. Had a really good first 3 quarters against the Seahawks on December 18th. Since that fourth quarter against the Seahawks and overtime, and the Falcons and the Cardinals and the Panthers game, they have not played good football. They are not peaking at the right time. They have passed their peak. The LA Rams are beatable. Now, if McVay rallies the troops and gets them to play like they were playing over a month ago, you could see the Bears lose by maybe 10 points, 17 points, 14 points. It's possible if the Rams get back to their play style the way they were playing. But we haven't seen that. Now, the Bears, I think they can exploit this Rams secondary. It is not very good. I think Caleb Williams is going to have open receivers. I think Ben Johnson is certainly going to scheme open guys. I think Caleb Williams is going to be able to have success against this secondary. You heard Laurence Holmes mention they have a good pass rush. They do. No Ozzie Trapillo. That's going to hurt. Theo Benedict is not as good of a pass blocker as Ozzie Trapillo. I assume it's going to be Benedict and not Braxton Jones. If Braxton Jones plays, we have no idea what he is at this point. He hasn't played in months. Maybe he's better. Maybe Braxton Jones is back to where he was, and he was not healthy early in the season. We don't know. But right now, we should assume that the Bears left tackle is not as good as Ozzie Trapillo coming into this game. And the Rams can get to you around the edge. I trust, like I told Lawrence, I trust Tooney, Dahlman, and Jackson to get the job done on the interior. But yes, the Bears can get exposed a little on the edge. Darnell Wright can hold his own. But, guys like Jared Verse, they are really good football players. And Caleb Williams, as we know, still has a tendency to hold on to the football a little too long. I'm not complaining about it. He makes a lot of great plays. It's fine. It's quicker than it is than it was. But he still tends to hold on to the football a little too long. If the Rams pass rush is really rolling, that could cause a problem. But overall, I am not worried about this Bears offense against this Rams defense. I think there's going to be plenty of success. I think the Bears are going to be able to run the football better than they did last week. I'm surprised they had as much struggles running the football as they did. I think the Bears are certainly going to have a good passing game. I could see Caleb tossing over 300 yards again, a couple of touchdowns. But then it also gets to this Rams offense against the Bears defense. This is Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. That is a better offensive combo, coach and quarterback, than Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love. And Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love are an excellent coach-quarterback combo. They got out to a 21-3 lead against the Chicago Bears. So Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay, with better receivers, with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, against a Bears secondary that may not be healthy. We don't know what we're going to see with this secondary. That scares me a little. I'm not, and look, watch it bite me in the ass. I'm not a big Kyron Williams guy. I'm not a Blake Corum guy. They're okay. Kyron, I don't think Kyron's elite, but at the same time, I think the Chicago Bears are going to be able to stop the run enough. I don't see the Rams going off on the run game. I am concerned about what Stafford and McVay can do to this secondary. The Bears are not going to be able to pressure Stafford. So they're going to give Stafford all day if they don't blitz. And if they do blitz, Stafford is going to hurt the blitz because he's an excellent quarterback. So I have real concerns about what this Rams passing offense is going to do. But I also have confidence that this Bears offense is going to have success as well. So I think this is a scoring game. Now, I know in Chicago on Sunday, they're talking about negative wind chills, single-digit temperatures potentially. That favors the Bears. I would much rather have Caleb Williams in the cold than Matthew Stafford. Now, Matthew Stafford has shown that he can play in the cold. This is not, I understand, went to Georgia. I understand, Detroit Dome, Los Angeles. He hasn't had to deal with it. But, game he played against Philly in the playoffs last year in crappy temperatures and snow, he could play in the cold. I don't think Stafford is just going to be 10 of 24 for 112 yards because of cold temperatures. I think Matthew Stafford's going to play well. I do like that there's going to be some elements involved because I do think that favors the Bears. I think they're thriving in the cold right now. So I think this game is going to be close in the fourth quarter. I don't know if this is going to take another miracle comeback. I think there's the potential on the table for a miracle comeback because if Dennis Allen makes the adjustments he needs to make and can minimize Stafford's abilities in the second half, even if the Rams have a lead, I think the Bears can come back, especially against that Rams secondary. I think Caleb Williams can have success. So when I look at this, I think it's a coin flip game. And when it's a coin flip game, I am not picking against the Chicago Bears team. Not a chance in hell. This team continues to show that they can win in any circumstance. No matter what the win probability odds are, the Chicago Bears can win football games. And I am be damned if I'm going to bring bad juju and try and sit there and outsmart everyone else and go, well, I picked the Rams. I knew this was going to happen if the Bears don't win. I am picking the Chicago Bears team. I am riding the wave with this Chicago Bears team. I think this Chicago Bears team has something special going on, and it's going to take something special from another team to try and stop what this Bears team is doing. So I am going to pick the Chicago Bears to win this game. I think there's going to be points on the board. I called it 31-27 last week. And what was the final score? 31-27. It played out exactly how I thought it was going to. If you don't believe me, go back and let's check out the audio of the last Bears Banter, last couple of minutes of the episode. I called the score exactly. So this one, I'm going to say there's even more scoring. I'm going to say the Bears win this one 34-30. The Chicago Bears advance to the NFC Championship game. And if the 49ers can get it rolling, I don't know if they can. No George Kittle on the road. Seahawks defense is tough. The 49ers can get it rolling. Then the Super Bowl is coming through Chicago. If not, the Bears will be in Seattle against a tough defense. But what we know is Sam Darnold can turn into a pumpkin at any time. The Bears are 2 wins away from making Super Bowl 60. It is a great time to be alive and be a Bears fan. We will talk about it next week. Bear down, everybody. Good luck. Enjoy this game, baby. We'll talk to you next week. Adios.